Exodus, Gods and Kings. The opening scene of the film sees the Egyptian pharaoh Seti consulting the high priestess about aspects related to omens, portents, and also the nature of stability within the empire. A chicken is sacrificed and she pulls out the entrails and tells the pharaoh what it means. She tells the two men of the prophecy, in which one of Moses and Ramesses will save the other and become a leader. Soon after, Seti removes two swords from a box. The scabbard are made of gold and ivory. He deliberately gives Moses and Ramses the other's sword to symbolize that they should look after the other's sword like they would look after each other's lives. Ramses and Moses ride into battle and take the Hittites almost totally by surprise. The latter put up a brave fight though, and Ramses almost loses his life when he falls off his smashed chariot and is almost trampled on by a Hittite chariot. However, in the nick of time, Moses fouls the chariot's wheels with a spear and saves Ramses. It appears that for the proud Ramses, it was almost shameful to be saved by Moses. Anyway, back in the court of the Egyptian pharaoh, the latter is beyond grateful. Later, during a debriefing about the battle, Seti tells Ramses to visit Pithom and check up on how the region's governor is managing the people, slaves, essentially, over there. So Moses offers to go instead. In Pithom, Moses, who doesn't like the way the Egyptian slaves are being treated, he tells the governor there that he is living too lavishly even while the slaves and workers are in miserable conditions. During a meeting with the Hebrew slaves, one of the elders asks him his name, and is startled to hear the name Moses. A message is conveyed to Moses, asking him to meet none at night in his area so that he can convey his message. He tells Moses that he is not Egyptian, and that he was raised by the Egyptians as he was found floating in a basket on the Nile. Moses is shocked, but soon this secret is conveyed to Ramses by people who overhear the conversation that none has with Moses. The governor travels to Memphis and tells Ramses, who by now is the pharaoh as Seti is dead, that Moses is of Hebrew blood. Later that night, as Ramses is enjoying a crab dinner, he asks Moses, who is also in the room, whether all of it is true. It is ascertained that Moses is indeed of Hebrew stock and is not Ramses's real brother. Moses is then exiled. Moses wanders far and wide and ends up parched and exhausted at an oasis by the Red Sea. There he meets Zipporah, whose beauty and grace charms him. They get married and in time have a son. Moses then ventures up a nearby hill called God's Hill, a forbidden place, and is nearly killed in a landslide. Half buried in wet and heavy mud, the burning bush incident occurs, and God appears to him in the form of a boy who tells him that he will be the general who will fight against Ramses for persecuting his people. He tells Moses that he will have to lead his people out to Canaan. While recovering, Moses confesses his past to Zipporah and reveals what God has asked him to do. After he arrives in Egypt, Moses reunites with Nun and Joshua, as well as meeting his brother Aaron for the first time. Moses returns to confront Ramesses, demanding the Hebrews be released from servitude. Ramesses refuses to listen, insisting that to free the slaves would be economically impossible. Upon Moses threatening Ramesses' life, Ramesses orders the death of Moses, executing random Hebrew families until he is found. Using his military skills, he trains the slaves in the art of war. The Hebrews start attacking the Egyptians, prompting Ramesses to raid slave villages. Malak appears to Moses and explains that 10 plagues will affect Egypt. The first plague: all of the water in Egypt, even stored water, including ponds, canals, streams, and the Nile River, turned to blood. All of the fish soon die and float at the top, causing a terrible stench. The second plague, frogs, multiplied in number, so almost every square inch of the land and the palace was infested with them. The third plague: vast swarms of gnats and flies tormented people and animals and spread disease, as they have been breeding on the dead fish. The fourth plague: vast swarms of flies through the land, spreading disease. The fifth plague: the Egyptians' livestock perish. Horses, donkeys, cattle, sheep and goats all die save the ones owned by the Hebrews. The sixth plague. Unsightly skin diseases afflict the Egyptians, Pharaoh included. The seventh plague, powerful hailstorms, lay devastation. The eighth plague, locusts, in such great numbers that the ground is covered with them. They devour everything that survived the hailstorm. The ninth plague, darkness over the entire land for 3 days. While conversing with Malak, Moses is horrified at learning the 10th plague will be the death of all firstborn children. The Hebrews protect themselves by covering their doors with the blood of lambs, as instructed by Moses. Ramses is devastated over his son's death and relents, telling Moses and the Hebrews to leave. Ramses is grief-stricken by the death of his baby, and his wife loses her mind. He decides to pursue Moses and the Hebrews and slaughter them before they get to Canaan and show them that he too can cause destruction and killing. After making their way through a dangerous mountain pass, Moses and the Hebrews arrive at the edge of the sea, uncertain about what to do. Moses flings his sword into the water, which begins to recede. Ramses and his army pursue the Hebrews, but Moses stays behind to confront them. The Red Sea reverts to its normal state, drowning the majority of the Egyptians crossing the Red Sea. Moses survives and makes his way back to the Hebrews. Ramses is revealed to have survived, but he is distraught over the destruction of his army. Moses leads the Hebrews back to Midian, where he reunites with Zipporah and Gershom. At Mount Sinai, after seeing Malak's displeasure at the Hebrews' construction of the golden calf, Moses transcribes the 10 Commandments. Years later, an elderly Moses, riding with the Ark of the Covenant, sees Malak walking with the Hebrews through the desert.